All right, it is that time again to continue our 2024 preview as far as the upcoming season. With today's episode, we are going to do Conference USA, obviously the smallest conference in college football, but a conference that sent a team last year to the Fiesta Bowl. And Liberty went unbeaten in the regular season, and I'm here to tell you there's a very good chance that they could send even a team this year to the playoff with Liberty's schedule. We'll get more into Liberty in a second, but before I get into all that and preview each and every team here, before I talk to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, before I bring up producer extraordinaire Zach Phillips, who will be working behind the controls, let me remind everybody, this is why we're excited to be doing these conference previews this year. We have a new sponsor. You might have heard of them. They're called FanDuel. Obviously, one of the nation's largest sports books. And Hit the Books is now sponsored by FanDuel. Not only these previews that we'll be doing, but obviously Hit the Books regular weekly shows that we'll be starting up doing 3 a week. That's right, 3 a week, Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays during the season. And I know we're going to be talking a lot of college football. Obviously, this is a college football show here, but and I know we're still a few weeks away from college football, but in the meantime, Major League Baseball is the only thing getting us through the dog days. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. Daily. That's right. There's something for everyone each and every day for the rest of the summer. You can take your booster bonus and bet on everything Major League Baseball related, from home runs to strikeouts and even the final score. Plus, with FanDuel, you can combine your bets in a live same-game parlay for a shot at even a bigger payout. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start racking up some runs in the sun. Obviously, FanDuel is an industry leader. It's one of the best products out there. Lots of college football offerings. We'll be talking about a few offerings that they posted here. Great live menu. It's first to market in college football. A lot of fun bets. So we're excited to have FanDuel as part of a sponsor. I do have to read this disclaimer. And I don't know how old you are, but if you're old and you're a kid from the 80s or the early 90s, I'm going to read this like the Micro Machines guy. Keep in mind, if you are betting at FanDuel, you must be 21 plus, 18 plus DC, and present in select states. Opted and required wager requirements apply. Bonuses awarded and not with tradable bonus bets or profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including bonus expiration. See terms and conditions at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rghelp.com in Colorado, DC, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-800-NEXTSTEP or text NEXTSTEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777. That's 4 sevens. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland, or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-HOPE/New York, or text HOPE New York in New York. Knish, a lot of me talking, man. I'm going to let you do the rest of talking for the rest of this show. What's happening, man? You excited?
I'm glad you're the read guy, because that would have taken about 86 takes of me doing that, and we would have been here until midnight with me having to read that. So I'm glad you're the take guy. Conference of America's Conference USA, baby. But first, last week, you know what? We said we were talking about a couple of award markets, and we said, FanDuel didn't have those up yet. We'll ping the trading team to see if we can get those up. A couple of people were, in my DMs chirping, well, what does this new sponsorship mean for the listener? This is what it means for the listener, baby. Zachy Phillips, pull those up. Now we got some Doak Walker. Now we got some Bolitnikov. Birds chirping. Might have a couple more to come here. But a few of those award markets, including one player, I'm not going to give it to him, because if you would have listened to some of the previous episodes, you know what player we like in that Bolitnikov market that is there for the best price in the market. But those are up. Lowest hold, most offerings in those two award markets, with a couple more, I think, on the way. So, hey, that's it. That's what we do, baby. We answered the bell. FanDuel answered the bell. So that's part of the partnership here that we can bring to the listener. So excited about that. Nice job on the read, and excited about talking about what we'll call it one of the most interesting conferences out there for the America's G5 this year.
Look, I love college football. Leaves a bit to be desired. I know I say that term a lot, but Conference USA, obviously, from power ratings perspective, outside of Liberty, the weakest conference in college football. But speaking of Liberty, let's start off like we've done with some of these other conference previews that we've already done. we'll hit on each team. We'll talk about more about some teams than others, but we'll start always at the top. Liberty, who clearly, if you pull up Zach, the conference odds to win the conference, deserves to be a slam dunk favorite over the field here. As far as a power ratings perspective, I have Liberty 10 points better than the second best team in Conference USA on a neutral. And keep in mind, Conference USA has a home game. So Liberty likely will probably get a home game for a second year in a row. This year's team, you can make a case it may even be better than last year's team. Caden Salder's back. Cooley's back at running back. Nice additions, some sneaky additions in the transfer portal. Obviously, they get the coach back, Jamie Chadwell. That's all he does is win, going back to Coastal Carolina. There's not very many in the last 4 or 5 years as far as any head coach in America. It's won more games than him. So there's a reason why the win total is 10.5. There's only one game in question as far as whether Liberty will be an underdog or not. That's at App State, a non-conference game. I think they'll have to run the table, considering that was a terrible performance in the Fiesta Bowl last year. They'll have to go unbeaten if they want to grab that playoff spot as far as that first one for the G5 conferences. But getting Jacksonville State and Western Kentucky, the other two contenders in this league, both at home, I mean, this team deserves to be a minus money favorite versus the field.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, it says something about the power of this program that they were able to keep Salter. And I mean, that was a guy who, if he would have put himself on the market, would have had no shortage of Power 5 suitors looking to get him and paying him a good money. The fact they were able to keep him and add, as you said, I think it was 7 Power 5 transfers to add, which again, you putting that type of talent in this league just makes such a a differentiator from some of the programs that they're going to go up against. Yeah, I think you nailed it. I don't think there's a ton of interest. It would almost be borderline shocking if they weren't in the conference title game and didn't win the conference. Can they run the table and make the playoff? As you said, it has to be undefeated. And I'm going to tell you, I think it has to be undefeated with almost a lack of other suitors after that Oregon performance. That would be the question that I would have in terms of staying away from them in regards to can they make the playoff. It's all set up for them to run the table, but if a team from the Sun, an 11-1, 12-1 Boise, 11-1, 12-1 team from the Sun Belt, I don't know. We'll have to see what the committee does here, but I think they've got to go out, they've got to run the table, and they've got to put some of these teams into the blender to have a chance to make the playoff. But in terms of this conference, it is head and shoulders above the field.
No question. There's not much else to say there. I mean, this is a team that a program, I should say, in a school. It's just got their budget is significantly higher than everybody else in Conference USA. Let's talk about a couple of teams that might be able to give them a game or at least make the Conference USA championship game. I'll start with Western Kentucky. A team that's been okay. Helton's done okay. He's consistently won right around 8 games. You and I last time I think we talked to Western Kentucky. We were doing a live show, and they had a comeback. You might have remembered that in the bowl game against Old Dominion with a backup quarterback. But that quarterback's back. But on top of that, they bring in Finley, TJ Finley, formerly of Auburn, and had a nice season at Texas State. So I think they'll be okay at quarterback, even though they lose a 2-year starter there. Consistent 7-8 win team. That's where the market has Western Kentucky's win total, right around 7.5. I haven't gotten too involved. Again, I always shop around. So, I mean, if I saw 7, which I did at a few other books, I bet a little over there. But a team that I don't think necessarily is overrated or underrated so far in the offseason markets.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the concern I have with Western Kentucky. Tyson Helton, his tenure was a little bit on the rocks. He hits an absolute home run with the Zach Giddy hire and the offensive coordinator hire to bring him over from Houston Christian, and brings all Bailey Zappi, brings all the talent with them. They become this, greatest show on turf offense. And then they lose a little bit, and the offense, go after 21. It goes from a top 10 offense in college football to about 40th. And they lose a little more, and it drops to about, in the mid-50s. Now, really all of those pieces that they had from the original, FCS transfer of getting all those Houston Christian, that's all gone. So now it's kind of, as you said, they bring in TJ Finley. They've got all new personnel. Can this Western Kentucky team kind of be the same. It's been a trending in the wrong direction from when they peaked under Zappi. And also, you know what? I know they've changed defensive coordinator. It's gotten back to a little bit, when Tomlin first got there, this was like a defensive team. They've tried to reinvigorate that. I know they've hit the transfer portal a little hard in terms of defense. I'll be honest with you. I'm more of a glass half empty guy on this Western Kentucky team for the year. I know there was some better numbers out there early. I'm not probably dying to play the 7.5 under. If you had an 8, maybe around there, I think I'd be a little bit more inclined, depending on what. But at 7.5, I think it's a pass for me. Gun to my head, I would go under because I think this is a program slightly headed in the wrong direction. While a couple of the other teams in Conference USA are, I think, maybe a little bit friskier.
Let's talk next team, Jacksonville State, who actually transitioned very nicely to the FBS last year. And you might have heard of him. Rich Rodriguez, their head coach, wins everywhere he goes for the last 30 years, with the exception
Almost everywhere.
With the exception of Ann Arbor, Michigan. But other than that, you can't deny this guy. Back-to-back 9-win seasons for him here at Jacksonville State. Not much returning experience for them. And you look at the schedule, though, I think a really sneaky game, week 1 game, where we'll get a good feel on where both programs are, is that game where they host Coastal Carolina on a Thursday night. That's a game I'll be watching because it's competitively priced. I'm going to learn a lot about both programs right out of the gate. As far as Jacksonville State for the entire season, markets, right, similar to Western Kentucky. It's kind of, who do you like better in that one? Now, I personally lean. I know you're a little bit anti-Western Kentucky. I just like Western Kentucky having that game at home against Jacksonville State this year. So I give the edge slightly to Western Kentucky as far as that second best team. But we're talking, a difference of a point between them, the second and third best teams in Conference USA. Haven't gotten too involved in the win total. I think that they were slightly, if you looked at some of the very early markets, they were slightly overrated, in my opinion. We've seen a little bit of money come in against Coastal in that week 1 game, but other than that, I don't have a strong take on this Jacksonville State team. I mean, I think generally speaking, sometimes when you have so much success and it seems like a breeze and it's an easy transition, maybe there's a little bit of a sophomore slump here in year 2 of the FBS for them.
Yeah, I mean, there's some. I probably like this team. Again, we're very thin margins here, but I probably like this team a bit better than Western Kentucky. However, there is a lot of turnover on offense, and again, Rodriguez, one of those guys. It kind of reminds me of the late Mike Leach, where you almost plug and play almost anywhere. Guy he gets guys, he runs his offense. You know what it's going to be. It's going to be a ton of quarterback run, quarterback power, as fast tempo as you can get it. And again, they brought in Zion Turner from UConn, Tyler Huff from Furman, a couple of guys that can probably run the Rodriguez system, to a point. They kind of seem like the quarterbacks to fit that mold. The defense, kind of brings a little bit of what I could think could be, Rich Stroud's always had that aggressive 3-3-5, and Luke Olson from Tulsa kind of comes in here, and I think they're still going to run that system. Has a decent amount coming back there, so I think in terms of talent, this is a program that even when they were at the FCS level, really had an affinity for kind of accumulating, I'll call it FBS talent, to be able to get in and having size in that. So again, I think they can be the second best team in this conference, but again, far and away from what Liberty has. And not too, it's another win total that kind of I'm on the same wavelength here with the 7.5. Just doesn't really interest me one way or another.
Speaking of the talent, they did lose a very key defender. They're by far their best defender, the Hardy kid on the defensive end, who was one of the nation's leaders in sacks and TFLs last year. Lose him post-spring, significant loss. I mean, he's a guy that probably worth a little bit to the point spread, even by a half point or so. So maybe that's maybe a little bit of the difference there. I downgraded Jacksonville State just losing that guy post-spring. Let's talk about next team. It might be a surprise to you. You and I, we don't go over. We just, we're off the cuff here. We feel like we know enough about college football. The fourth team might surprise because I'm going in order, top to bottom of my power ratings. Sam Houston State is my fourth best team in Conference USA. I'm anxious to get your take on this because I think I'm a little bit more pro of Sam Houston State than the market. Maybe we got a bet here on Sam Houston State. Generally speaking, unlike Jacksonville State, was a tough year 1 transition. However, there's a lot of things I liked. One, they were competitive. Even though they started off 0-8, they didn't get down on themselves. They didn't quit on the season. They were competitive in a lot of those games, including on the road against Liberty. They gave Liberty's toughest game of the season last year. And they finally broke through, won 3 of their last 4 games. I like their head coach, Casey Keeler. Again's a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Wins everywhere he goes. I think in a day and age where we don't have a lot of returning production, particularly for the group of 5 schools, they have enough, in my opinion, 14 returning starters. The offense was abysmal last year. It can only get better. I like what they did in the transfer portal at quarterback. I think that'll be an upgrade. I think the schedule's not overwhelming. A couple of tough games early, but after that, and obviously Liberty at the end. But I bet over 4.5. So where are you at on Sam Houston State? And it's still 4.5.
Well, where I'm at is I'm still have PTSD from the first month of the season last year, having to watch that offense when I think we were backing them and I thought what we thought was some inflated numbers, and they couldn't get a first down for like 3 straight games. I think they had 7 total points over the course of 3 weeks. However, as you said, it was a team that late sneakily kind of got it together, brought it on. Now, they are replacing a lot on the defense, a defense that was kind of carrying them through the first part of the season, but they were able to get it together. And I agree. Now, the non-conference there is, it's not for the faint of heart there, because it's a Rice team that are going into the Rice game week 1, having Rice there. UCF, obviously very tough. A Hawaii team that I think we're both pretty bullish on. They've got Texas State. So they didn't get, I would call, any schedule favors, but a team that if you're looking at how I think they match up with some of the other, what we call it, middle and lower tier of Conference USA, I agree with you. I would kind of be leaning towards where I think you're going with this win total. It's just, can they get one of those coin flip games, we'll call them? Can they beat a Hawaii in that at home to get over this hump here? What do you think?
Yeah, Zach, you can mark me. I'll own this one. I'll go over 4.5. Last year they had a tough non-con. You mentioned, hey, they couldn't get a first down in the first 3 weeks. Well, they played BYU, Houston, and I'm trying to think who else they played. Another really tough team to start the season. So they had a tough go at the start. They were able to survive. Air Force's defense, which was really good too. So It was BYU, Air Force, and Houston. So I think they're won't be overwhelmed. I think the Hawaii game, at least with it being at home, is winnable. The other 3 probably not. But again, we can come back to it. I'll own it over 4.5. But I think you'll like it more as we dive into some of these other teams. A lot of them with new coaches. I mean, who do you like over this team? There's just more continuity at Sam Houston State. Last I checked, a 0-sum game. Can't have a bunch of ties anymore in college football for the last 30 years. So I like them better than a lot of these teams, including the next couple that do have new coaches. Middle Tennessee would be one. And obviously they bring in over Derek Mason after firing their coach after 2 decades. He wasn't my favorite coach, but anytime you can last 2 decades in today's day and age in college football, you won enough. Obviously Mason should be familiar with the area. He just coached, after getting fired from Vanderbilt just a couple seasons ago. Not a big Derek Mason guy.
No.
Not a big fan of the returning production or lack thereof. Only 7 returning starters. Schedule's not overwhelming. So, Ole Miss is obviously tough. Duke, I think is down. Memphis is tough. But, again, in conference outside of Liberty, it's not like they're much worse than some of these other teams. I haven't gotten involved. Win total sitting at 4.5. Seems right to me.
Yeah, I'm with you here. It's just, again, stock still up and down tenure. I think, he had the bet when his son, I remember when his son was, coaching for him, they were able to kind of, whip it, ringing around. It were kind of a fight. He won a lot of games that you wouldn't think, they had some up and down years, but some conference title appearances. And I'd say for a large part of his tenure, they were pretty fun. Derek Mason doesn't strike me as fun or competent. I don't love that hire. Defensive coordinator Brian Stewart. It was his last stop was in the XFL. A lot of turnover. I'm not really sure. Under Derek Mason, Vanderbilt was kind of trying to be like a run. I am when you're a program that's on the fringe. I think the last thing you want to do is try and like line up and be physical and do all that stuff, because that you're never going to get those players to do it. So we'll see what type of offense Mason comes in with and how this looks. But I know it'll definitely be a different from what Stockstill ran out. I don't love the coaching staff hires. I don't love the returning production. I don't.
So why haven't you bet under 4.5?
I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, honestly, the reason is because of some of the other teams we've still yet to talk about here in this conference. That I think. I mean, listen, they've got a returning quarterback that I think's all right. They're going to have some games. Like, I mean, I'll give you 4 games: Kennesaw State, UTEP, New Mexico State, FIU, La Tech. I mean, they have Tennessee Tech for FCS games, so they've got 5 or 6, you call them winnable games, some coin flip games. So, I mean, if I had to play it, I would take under, but it's not one of those that I'm like running to the counter here and saying we got to go under 4.5 just because of some of the lower tier of this conference that are with.
I'm with you. No bet yet for me if I had to bet it under. Let's talk another program with a first-year coach, New Mexico State.
It's your guy, baby. Tony Sanchez.
Tony Sanchez. Yeah, I think he got a bad rep, whatever you want to say, as far as UNLV. He laid the foundation as far as fundraising behind the scenes. He was unlucky in a couple seasons where they lost some coin flip games that would have put him in a bowl game. So I actually thought he did a better job than people probably remember at UNLV. Takes over New Mexico State. He's a New Mexico State alum. He was on last year's staff, but boy, this is one where I'm surprised the books were really on top of this. I thought I would have an anti-New Mexico State position as much as any team in college football this year. I downgraded them as much as any team in college football this year. They only have 8 returning starters total. They're off. I'm always about historical outliers. Well, New Mexico State's off arguably their best back-to-back seasons in the history of their football program. Obviously, Jerry Kill leaves. Everybody else, Diego Pavia, and everybody else with the exception of the offensive line that returns all 5 starters, everybody's gone from them. So I think they take a massive step back. But the market, a team that won 10 games last year opens 4.5 win total. They were on top of this downgrade. We haven't even hardly seen too much line movement. A little bit of under money, but it's not like it's moved off of 4.5. That's what it opened at, and it stayed at 4.5. So I thought this is one that I was expecting 5.5, maybe 6. I wanted to go under. That never got there. So it's a program that it would be a tremendous first year for Sanchez if they got back to a bowl game. I don't see it though.
I mean, I remember us in the early, in the winter here in Michigan, talking about, eyeing this as a potential win total. But hey, it came out pretty sharp. I think juiced under 4.5 is probably right. I mean, this was a program that we had a lot of fun with last year. Had the future rolling into the championship game at big prices, a team that we were backing a lot last year. Fun team, Jerry Kill getting, a program that's been on the mat for, 50 years, up to one of their greatest, but I mean, you said it, they're kind of all everything quarterback. I mean, the offense was basically Pavia running around like a maniac last year and a team that was carried in a lot of games by their defense. The defense is like all gone. And now you said Pavia and our man, Jerry Kill, who, one of the all-time, the coaches who can do the most with the least type of guy there. And now, and as you said, maybe Tony Sanchez will be able to up the talent profile eventually to this New Mexico State team, but this year seems like a rough one. And even with the schedule, even with the number coming in a little better, I probably still lean under here with the 4.5. So didn't get to the window on it. Was hoping, as you said, for a better number, but I just don't see a lot of reason for optimism here with the schedule. Maybe there's, more that, it looks better in the fall than we think, but there's just so much turnover here for a program that, as you said, is usually scraping the bottom of the barrel. So it's going to be a tough year one for Tony.
Let's talk about a coach that has had a tough couple of first 2 years so far, and that's Cumbia at Louisiana Tech. Back-to-back 3-9 seasons. You take it back to the previous coach Louisiana Tech's had 3 straight 3-9 seasons. This year, not much coming back, 7 returning starters. I mean, that's just only 2 on offense. A lot of their best guys are gone. The Smoke Harris of the world, the Allen kid from at wide receiver transferred to Texas A&M. Not a lot to work with. I thought the market was extremely aggressive with the opening number at 5.5. I went under that now. I think obviously I'm closer to where it is now at 4.5 wins. So I originally took a fade position on this Louisiana Tech team. I'm not sure I really like what I see from Cumbie. I mean, I know a lot of people will look, the close game due for regression because he's had poor luck. I don't know if it's poor luck or poor coaching, because 2 things. When you lose a bunch of close games each of the first 2 years, 2 things I look at: turnovers and penalties. And Louisiana Tech has not cleaned up turnovers, has not cleaned up penalties. In my opinion, a couple of signs of not that great at coaching. You lose your close games. Why? You're not playing smart football, and with hardly anybody back. I know they got a little bit better depth, but not experienced depth. I don't like this team either this year. It's going to sound pretty negative, this preview, but I even at 4.5, I'm not running the window to bet, to go for a middle, because I bet under 5.5, and okay, I got a win difference. Let's bet over 4.5. I'm not there yet. I can tell you that. I would need probably at least 4.
No, I'm with you here, especially because I think this could be this could be it for Cumbie. Honestly, if they don't show something, if they don't get over that win total, I don't know if you bring them back for a year 4, because as you said, there's not a lot of. I mean, last year I think they had just a better roster, a better talent, a Hank Bachmeier court, and it did not come in. And this is traditionally a program that should be better than where they're at in this conference. That it has more talent, local talent, and resources than a lot of the other teams that we're talking about here at this realm of the conference. So I don't think the program is going to be satisfied with 3, 4, 5 win seasons. It got Skip Holtz fired after one of those 3-9. And if they go back to the well here with a 4 or 5 win, I think he's out. And I don't have. I mean, the three lineman transfers are all from the FCS level. I don't love, a lot of what they did in the portal. I think it almost reeked of a little desperation. I don't, as you said, a couple of the smoke hair, I think this team was just better last year and had, as you said, poor coaching and underwhelmed. If anything, I don't see why they would be. I think they're potentially even a downgrade off last year's team. So, it would be, even at 4.5, it'd be an under for me.
You know what worries me, and I'll have to dive in, it might be some program issues here, because I thought Skip Holtz was a pretty good coach. They got rid of him. And I know it's not apples to apples, but Skip Holtz, what's he do? Right after he won everywhere he went, including Louisiana Tech, he's won 3 straight UFL or whatever
UFL,
league it is.
Yeah.
3 straight championships in the 3 years he's been gone. I don't know. There's something that just I don't see it. And I know Cumbie says he's got better depth. I don't think he's got better talent. Again, a lot of their marquee guys that at least impressed me on tape are gone. So I'm definitely on the sell on Louisiana Tech. I don't know if we got buy teams here, but let's talk FIU. I like McIntyre. I think he gets the most out of his team. I'm stunned that they were able to win 4 games each of the last 2 years. You look at them statistically, they've been more like a 2-win team each of the last 2 years. I think this year's team's much better, but I don't think the record gets better. He's got 14 returning starters. Does lose one of his best players at wide receiver. Chris Mitchell is going to start at Notre Dame. I don't know if that's poor on Notre Dame or wow, big loss on FIU. Probably a little bit of both. But man, win total here 4.5. I want to lean under, to be honest with you. It's just that McIntyre, I don't like laying 170 at this point.
Yeah.
McIntyre's got, again, I think this year's team's better than the first 2, and both of those teams won 4 games. He just finds a way to win, but this might be one of those cases where, hey, this year's team's much better, but the record doesn't reflect it.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. I love McIntyre as a coach. I think he's gone into some situations like he's like the fixer. Like he goes into these awful program situations, comes in and is able to get, whatever you can get out of this. This is a program that that was having trouble affording practice, material, and just having in terms of financial resources, they have almost none. And he's, as you said, a respectable 4-8 the first 2 years. I think he's a better, like if we're just talking, I think he's a lot better coach than most of the other coaches in this conference that he's going up head to head against. They return a decent amount. It's just, if I would let, like if you gave me a flat 4 here, I would be much more inclined to play over than on the 4.5. I think he can replicate that, that 4 and 8 with maybe a bite at the cherry at 5 and 7. And you know what? They've got Central Michigan coming in. They got Monmouth coming in. Plus, some of the other bottom feeders here in Conference USA. I think they can get the 5. I would need a 4 though to play it. So this is one of those we'll talk. If you want to, shop around type thing. The 4.5 gives me a little leery. I would want a flat 4, and that would be a bet for me, even if I had to pay a little bit more juice, because I think they can get to 4. 5 would be kind of the over the hump type of season.
Let's talk maybe one of the more high variance teams, in my opinion, in the entire, not only this league, but in the entire country this offseason. Tough team to power rate, UTEP. Only 5 returning starters, a brand new coach, and Scotty Walden comes over from Austin P. Why aren't you just automatically fading UTEP? I've said this on a few other shows. They remind me a lot of what Texas State did last year. Really good FCS program. Everybody transfers with Scotty Walden over from Austin P. A lot of excitement, young coach. In just a very short period of time, he signed by far the best recruiting class that UTEP's had in modern history, brought in a ton of transfers, to say the least. I mean, we're talking, 40 or 50 spots higher in the national rankings in a recruiting class he put together in a month. So a lot of energy. I've been in El Paso recently. I think there's a misperception about El Paso. Oh, Juarez, Mexico, it's a dangerous city. It's actually a nice city, man. The facility, the Sun Bowl's a very nice stadium. So I could see why he's able to, a young guy with some energy is able to recruit there. I didn't like their last coach, the low energy. So it's completely opposite vibe. But I mean, my gut normally says, hey, they got nobody coming back. Not necessarily a good team, a terrible program is historically last 3-4 decades. My gut says go under. But Texas State last year was a team I went under on and got my teeth kicked down my throat. That's the only thing. If there's one team that reminds me of that, a young coach coming in with a bunch of FCS transfers, this is the program. So that's why I haven't bet it yet. I haven't bet under 4.5, even though my numbers call for it.
You know what? I tell you, this seems to be the form. If you're one of these kind of middling G5 programs, this is the formula that I would go with, where you're taking an FCS coach, and as part of it, I'm going for a good FCS team that's been together, where I can bring 30% of the route, 10, 15, 20 guys, mix in some transfers, mix in a couple of the guys I have left, and then go out there and see if we can put together, a competitive team. You know what? Let's get a little spicy here. Of the futures in this conference that I would play, this would be the only one I'd be in. If you're not laying the chalk on Liberty just to get there, UTEP at 60-1. And again, one of those that I know high, we'll call it a value loser. It'd be a tough one to get home, obviously, and to beat Liberty, but if at one of those that has the opportunity, if everything breaks right, when they come together, if you have they're not going to be as good as Texas State last year, but they don't have to be because this conference is terrible. So all you need is, the continuity to come over, the new coach, a program that I think, as you said, recruiting a little bit of talent. They bring over a lot of starters. 60-1 would be the sprinkle for me in this conference, as far as a conference future here. Not one of those. I think it's going to the window. New Mexico State last year, I had more confidence in than this 60-1. But this would be the only future in terms of, I think the upside is there for them to potentially make a championship game run if everything goes right. Oh, but the downside is there as well for them to go under the win total. So high variance team, we'll call it.
Yeah. So what do we do in a quarter unit? 60-1?
I'm in. I like
Let's do it. Yeah, because if they hit it, there's certainly a possibility. I will say, just for those, FBS so much better than FCS. I power rate the FCS. at the end of last season, Austin Peay would have been favored over UTEP. So bringing in a bunch of guys, his best players, he's not going to bring in the guys that he doesn't think it's worth a damn. I mean, he's got a 1,400-yard rusher coming over, a bunch of wide receivers. But there's some stuff to work with. I actually watched UTEP spring game. There was some energy, believe it or not. That somebody was on the field and took video of play-by-play. I was like, yes, this is the stuff I like. Yeah, I think there's possibility there. There's also possibility that we look like an idiots and they go 2-10. It screams Texas State to me. So we'll see. Speaking of the FCS, there's a newcomer to the FBS this year coming from the FCS. It's Kennesaw State comes over. If you don't know where Kennesaw State is, it's in the greater Atlanta area. Kennesaw State program that was a pretty good FCS program for a while, but the trend line hasn't been good the last few years. They lost their defensive coordinator, Navy, who's now the Navy head coach. That kind of started it, the downfall a little bit. Last year, they kind of a throwaway season for them. What concerns me is they went 0-6 against the FCS. They won 3 games when it was against legit D2 teams. So they didn't try, but they didn't look good as it was last year. So, they did play Sam Houston State and almost won that game. So there's at least that. Maybe that was the one game that they circled. But I just got a lot of uncertainty here. I think, they're certainly not going to pull a Jacksonville State, what they did. I think it's much more similar to Sam Houston State. In fact, I'm probably even a little more pessimistic on Kennesaw State than I was even on Sam Houston State last year. Win total's 2.5, and I haven't played it yet, but if I had to, I'd probably go under because I'm not even sure they're favored in the UT Martin game. No, this is a team probably be an underdog in all 12 games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is one where a couple of years ago, also little tidbit, franchise KF, a friend of the show, honorable Kennesaw State alum. Little tidbit there. Yeah. So
what's the inside info? What's going on?
I was going to say, I know you should. I said you give me you should be on the sidelines. Some of that spring game footage there, too. But I guess this seems like it's going to be a rough one. I mean, this is a program FCS wise a few years ago really had it rolling. I mean, they were in the playoffs. They were upsetting teams. They were making playoff run, and then. We can say that, they didn't really, they were, trying to transition to the FBS, but last year, I mean, you can transition, but also not look like you bottomed out here in last year. I mean, last year was absolutely brutal. So to think you can recover from that, go up a level, and now, try and win, 3-4 games. I don't see, they also, they've kind of changed a little bit of I would have preferred it. They ran this more of what was a base triple for a while, then with a little bit of modernization to it, and they've kind of tried to get a little bit further away from that. And then I don't think
you had to the rules. I mean, that's why Army and some of the schools they don't know what to do.
You're right. And so now it's kind of left them, I think, in this no man's land of like, what are we as a program? Because that was our identity for a while that we could lean on, and that was tough to play against for a lot of teams. And now it's like, I don't know. So yeah, I would lean under 2.5 too. I don't know if this team can, I don't see 3 wins.
Now, folks, that's why he's the man, the myth, the legend. I thought that was the best thing we talked about on this show was I didn't know you were going to get that deep, but I think that is part of their problem is the new rules as far as the cut blocking. They're struggling like a Navy and Army last year flipped their offense and decided to flip it back because it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Kennesaw State, who was significant triple option, is also dealing with those issues. That's Joey Knish, also producer extraordinaire. I'm merely Brad Powers. We've come to the end here. What are we doing? I'll own Sam Houston State over 4.5. You like, and I also agree with the high variance UTEP to get them at 60-1 to win the conference. Anything else that we're betting? This is not a conference that we're wild about. There was a lot more pessimism than optimism here.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, one that we both liked UTSA in week 1 against Kennesaw. That number's run out a bit now. I think it's, what is that even? Is there FanDuel looks like, is it 24.5 that they're might even be a little bit further than that. If it's still, Zach, you get the Kennesaw State versus UTSA week 1.
24.5.
Yeah.
No, No.
I would agree. I passed
late to the party there. I'm looking at week 1 to see if we got something. Oh, I don't know if we have anything week 1. Might be a total, but I don't want to give out overs when I don't know the weather yet. Hey, folks, the long shot. You guys like long shots, and I have bet Sam Houston State over 4.5. So that's one I'm very comfortable with. I'm not putting up my own money if I expected to win when the books have it for 3-4 months. So I made that bet. I like Sam Houston State. So that's what I got. I got nothing else really.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a conference that hopefully, as we get into the season, we'll see where some of these new coaching staffs are at and go from there. But yeah, it could be it could be, what we'll call a down year for Conference USA as they try and add some members and build up.
And it will be a conference we won't overlook during the season. If you know us at Hit the Books, we'll hit any conference. And if we think there's some value, again, whether it's UTEP, which we hope over exceeds expectations, or if it's one of the other coaches like you mentioned, either really failing or exceeding expectations, then we'll be talking this conference on a weekly basis. Keep in mind, on a weekly basis, we are going to be sponsored by FanDuel. We thank them for sponsoring us. That'll do it for the Conference USA preview. For the man, the myth, legend himself, Joey Knish, I'm merely Brad Powers and producer extraordinaire Zach Phillips. You just watched Hit the Books, part of the Hammer Betting Network.